This episode of the Good Living Now podcast is sponsored by our friends at Kuvings. Now, I've had almost every brand of juicer on the market since I started my healing journey in 2015. But the Kuvings Auto 10 has been a complete game changer. It's easy to use and easy to clean. Plus, I'm able to make smoothies as well as sorbets and plant-based milk. So use my code JUICEGUY and save 10%. All right, you know what to do. Get your juice on. Welcome to the Good Living Now podcast, where we talk to real people about real change leading to real health. I'm your host, Harold Leffall, and today we're having a very important conversation about breast cancer. Breast cancer is something that affects so many women in this country. Now, the American Cancer Society says that an estimated 300,000 women will be diagnosed with breast cancer this year. Well, we have a breast cancer survivor and warrior today to share with us her healing and health journey. Welcome to the show, Amanda Butler. Hey, Amanda.
Hi.
Welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm so excited to have you. You know, I learned a new term from you. I was going through your Instagram and you have a group called the Cancer Baddie. I was like, well, come on now. I like that term. Come on, Cancer Baddie. So we got a Cancer Baddie in the house today. And thank you so much for accepting the invitation to have this important conversation that affects so many women and so many families, breast cancer.
Yeah.
And I know you were diagnosed with breast cancer just a couple of years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us about how that diagnosis came about. And you're so young, you look like you're about 20. And I'm like, so tell us, what was going on?
Good genes will hide your age, thankfully. No, I'm so excited to be here as well and to talk about this because this is such a huge epidemic that is happening. I get messages almost every week from women in their young 20s who are being diagnosed. And so I think it's just really important for us to talk about this because I never thought I was going to be diagnosed. I was the healthiest person I knew. I grew up in a very holistic household where my mom was like, no medicine, we're not eating processed foods. And I really adapted that lifestyle like the vast majority of my life. And then I moved into fitness and I really started building my career in that space. And then I started experiencing health issues after I stopped hormonal birth control. I was on birth control for about 12 years. I stopped it. And so for 4 years, I was having all of these issues in my body, like elevated hormones, gut issues, acne, all of this weight gain, but nothing that I was doing was changing. And so after 4 years, I was finally diagnosed with Hashimoto's in March of 2022. And I finally felt like I was getting myself back. I was getting my body back. And then that July, I found a lump on my right breast. And I did not think it was anything. Breast cancer does not run in my family. The only people I knew that had breast cancer were like friends' moms or grandmas. So I was like, I'm 32. There's no way that this is going to be breast cancer. I had a few people who were like in the field, the medical field, check it out. And they were like, we think it's fine, but we really think that you should go get a mammogram and an ultrasound. So I scheduled that. I went in. I ended up having to do a couple biopsies on that right breast, and it came back as breast cancer. So it just completely turned my entire life and my world around.
I've gotten that call too. When you get that call, what's going through your mind? What are you thinking? What are you feeling?
Yeah, it was a lot. So it was actually a Monday afternoon. I was driving back from the gym and I got the call from the nurse and they were like, "Hi, Amanda, we really want you to come in tomorrow morning to get your test results." And I was like, "Is there a reason I can't get them over the phone?" And they were like, "Yeah, we just really want to talk to you in person." And I knew I'm a very intuitive person and my heart sank. I actually, first job out of college, my degree was in health science and I worked for one of the largest health IT companies. So I was in hospitals and working around doctors and nurses. So I knew that if I wasn't getting the news over the phone, that it wasn't good news. So I went in it was a Tuesday morning and the doctor walked in, followed by 2 nurses. And I can't even explain that feeling because it's like this moment in time is a turning point for the rest of my life. I knew
Right.
right there in that moment, my life was just never going to be the same.
Mm. And it doesn't it almost feel like surreal, like you can't believe that you're going through this experience?
Yeah, I was like, there's no way. I was
Right.
in there by myself. I was like, me? Like,
Right, right, right. Yeah, right,
no
right, right.
way. Yeah, and I'm sure, and I know you've experienced that as well too.
Mm.
It's like this, just this sinking. What does this mean? What does this look like?
Right.
Especially as a young person. My
Yeah.
best guy friend actually passed away at 25 from cancer,
Mm.
and I've had
Mm.
a lot of family members who have passed from cancer, and so I was like, is this a death sentence? Like, what is this going to mean for my life, for my body, for my career, for it's just it's a
Mhm.
big question mark that comes up.
Right, right, right. And did they rush you into doing treatment like soon after your diagnosis? What was that process like?
Yeah, it was a few months. So I went through the scans, I did the MRI, I had the PET scan, and that's when my lymph nodes were lighting up. So initially, my diagnosis was called ductal carcinoma in situ, or DCIS. So they
Mhm.
used to refer to this kind of breast cancer as stage 0 because it means that the cancer cells are still encapsulated in the cells. So it's like the
Mhm.
earliest form of breast cancer. And mine was non invasive, meaning it had not spread, it was just there. So initially, my treatment plan was going to be just surgery. And if I did a lumpectomy, it was possible radiation. But
Mhm.
through the additional scans, my lymph nodes lit up. So I did biopsies there. And then my diagnosis changed to stage 2 invasive breast cancer.
Mm.
So I actually had two forms. So I had the DCIS in part of my breast, and then I had the invasive cancer in another part and in my lymph nodes. So that
Mm.
meant chemotherapy, surgery, possible radiation. So I actually rushed to freeze my eggs because
Mm.
chemotherapy can cause infertility. So I was
Mhm.
diagnosed September 20th. I froze my eggs the early parts of November, and I started my first chemo November 29th of 2022.
Mm. Mm. And how many rounds of chemo did you go through?
So initially I had 6 called TCHP chemo, and then I did my double mastectomy, but through surgery, they sent the tissue from the double mastectomy and my lymph nodes to the lab, and there was still microscopic cancer. So that meant I was not NAD, no evidence of disease. And
Mhm.
so I had to do 25 cycles of radiation and then 14 more rounds of a low dose chemo called Kadcyla. So in total, I did 20 rounds of chemo.
Mm.
Yeah.
Now, chemo is grueling. It's grueling
Mhm.
on the body. What were some of the things that you were going through? I'm sure you probably lost your hair, right? I mean, that's the thing that we normally think about when we think about chemo. People lose their hair, but there's a lot of other things that happen when you're going through chemo, isn't there?
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot. I actually cold capped. I was trying to save as much hair as possible. So this means like you put caps on that are like
Yeah.
negative 40 degrees Celsius every 20, 25 minutes for a duration of like 8 hours. It's a really long time.
Hmm.
But I still ended up losing about 80% of my hair.
Right.
But on top of that, it's just the nausea, the fatigue, the chemo brain from the steroids. You have energy, and your face is like they call it moon face. So if you see someone on steroids, their face is typically pretty fluffy, if you will.
Mhm. Right, right, right.
Um, but the fatigue and the nausea was really bad. A lot of people deal with stomach issues and headaches and body aches and all of those things. It's just I've never felt more week in my life, and I
Mhm.
was so fit and so strong, and I was still able to work out for the majority of treatment, thankfully, because I
Mhm.
started from such a high set point.
Right.
But I I just give so much grace to people who are older or who aren't in good shape and who have to go through chemotherapy because it just wrecks your body.
Mhm. And your treatment, how long did the treatment last?
I was in treatment for about a year and a half.
A year and a half.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, I hear so many people talk about the brain fog that's associated with going through chemo. And even after you're done with the treatment, it's like your body is still impacted by what you've gone through.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm. I finished my last chemo end of March. I had surgery May, but my body and my mind still feel like I'm in treatment. It's like my
Mm.
body is trying to catch up to my brain's way of processing because I've been talking about this and I've been doing so much in the cancer world that my mind understands what I've gone through, but my body is still a year behind me. They say
Mm.
it takes about 2 years for the chemo to leave your body. So we got some
Yeah.
time. We got some time.
Right, right, right.
Yeah.
And so while you were going through the treatment, were you doing anything different or like nutritionally or any other things that you were doing outside of the chemo, like to help deal with the fatigue, the brain fog, and all that type of stuff?
Yeah, I mean, my nutrition kind of stayed kind of the same. I will say it was really hard to get in vegetables for me because I was so nauseous all the time. It was really hard to get in those healthy foods. So I was eating a lot of like plain foods. And then on the weeks off where I was feeling good, then I would really try to get in all of my nutrients. So that kind of all stayed the same for me. The only thing that really helped me with the fatigue were these Encer tablets that I took. And that was
Mm,
a game changer, but I started that actually at the towards the end of my treatment. So it was really like the
mhm,
last 4 chemo rounds, and it
mm,
got rid of all of my nausea. It got rid of my fatigue. I was puking almost every day on Kadcyla, which they said is supposed to be easier than regular chemo, but it
mhm.
it made me so, so, so sick. And I started taking Encer, and it was crazy because on chemo weeks I would take it like 3 times a day, and it got
Right.
rid of so many of those symptoms.
Wow, I just recently learned of Encer. I
Yeah.
didn't know about it, and a lot of people tell me about all of the side effects they go through with chemo, and they just don't know that it's a homeopathic drug, so it's not
Mhm.
toxic to the body. Now, how did your doctor suggest this to you, or did you find about the Encer on your own?
Yeah, they actually reached out to me and I being in the US, I feel like there's so many different supplements you can take, and so I was a little skeptical, but I worked one-on-one with their doctor that actually created the supplement, and so I was
Mhm.
having weekly calls with him or biweekly calls with him, and he was really guiding me through how to take it, how to use it, doing check-ins with me, and it was I was like, "Wow, this is like one supplement that I feel like I can actually stand behind."
Wow. And what did you just take a daily?
Yeah, you
One or
take
two?
2 daily,
Okay.
so once in the morning, once in the afternoon, but on the chemo
Mhm.
weeks, I was taking it 3 times a day, so, like, morning, afternoon, and early evening, and it just gives you more energy. I don't know how to explain
Mm,
fatigue from cancer treatment related fatigue, but you feel
right.
it in your bones. Like you will have 9 hours of sleep, wake up and just be like, "Oh, I feel like I can't even open my eyes." And Enser really just gave me this boost of energy and also like mental clarity. So it was really, really helpful.
So you have been free of cancer since when?
Officially, I guess May. My doctor said last year, but I had a scare again. So I say like I guess end of March. I'll just say my last treatment, end of March.
Yeah. Wow. Congratulations.
Thank you, thank
Congratulations.
you.
So, how does it feel now to have gone through everything that you've gone through? And like for me, once I went through that whole cancer experience, every 6 months I would have to go to the doctor to get checked just to make sure everything was okay for like 5 years. And I would still get nervous when I would, go for those appointments. And I think I had a little bit of PTSD for a good period of time. Anytime I would have some kind of weird feeling, I'm like, oh my God, what is this?
Yeah.
Do you have any of that? And how do you deal with that?
I do a little bit. I think it's always going to be in the back of your mind, right? After you go through something as serious and as crazy as cancer, I think that that will always be a part of you that's there, that any decision you make, you're like, is this going to cause my cancer to come back? Is this, but I really try to live so presently in the moment that I don't allow that fear to overcome me. I do have PTSD when I go to the hospital. My body just knows and I get nauseous. I don't know if you experience that, but
Mhm.
it's like the chemo nausea comes back. It's like my body remembers. But I really try to live a delusional life where I'm like, I only went through this once and I got it out of the way and I'm never doing it again. So
Right.
yeah.
And, I want to go back to something that you mentioned earlier. You were healthy, you ate well before, you exercised, and you still got this diagnosis. But one of the things that you mentioned, and that I recently learned, that there is a direct correlation between birth control and cancer. And I don't think a lot of people know that in terms of that it's classified as a carcinogen.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's crazy, and I try to talk about this as much as possible and not to scare people, but really to educate people because I
Mhm.
think as women and just people in general, there's so much power and knowledge in making informed decisions. And when I got on birth control, I was on the oral pill. And I was on the pill for about 11 years. And I started probably when I was like 16, 17. And when you're at that age, and you go to Planned Parenthood, you're not really worried about cancer. You're not worried about the other side effects. And I don't even know if the doctors tell you. You're kind of just like, I just don't want a baby. And like, I'm going to do anything to not have a baby. And so I was on the pill for 11 years, as were every single one of my friends. And then I switched to the IUD. So I had this Skyla hormonal implant. So basically, they're just pumping synthetic hormones in your body
Mm.
to replicate the hormones that your body can actually produce. So it kind of regulates your period or stops your period and prevents pregnancy. Well, I stopped after 12 years of being on birth control. I stopped it and my body went crazy. My estrogen was through the roof for 3 to 4 years. And that's why I was going to so many different doctors trying to regulate all of this dysregulation in my body. And it was like all of these separate areas of me that I was trying to treat separately. And I didn't know that it was all connected to each other. I knew some of it was from the birth control because of my elevated hormones, but I didn't really put it all together until my diagnosis because I'm triple positive breast cancer, meaning I'm estrogen, progesterone, and HER2 positive, meaning that the cancer grows on those hormones. So
Mm.
I felt like it was the perfect storm in my body. And I do have to add, I did have genetic testing done and I'm BRCA2 positive. So
Mm.
if you're BRCA1, BRCA2, it means that you're more susceptible to breast and ovarian cancers and a few other cancers at a lower rate. So I
Mhm.
already had that in my body and I didn't know. And so three doctors told me that through the elevation of your hormones for so long, it created like a perfect storm in your body for the breast cancer
Mm.
cells to grow. And so I think it's just really important to educate women because a lot of us don't even know about genetic testing unless you're forced to get it due to a cancer diagnosis. But I really believe that our generation was kind of the test subjects on birth control, and we didn't really know much information. And now things are coming out where women are saying, I really think that my breast cancer was due to birth control.
Mm. And so the genetic testing part, is that something you have to request that your doctor does? That's not something that they do normally?
Yeah, they do it when you have a diagnosis because they want to see what's going on in your body and other diseases that you might be more susceptible to. But you can ask your doctor for genetic testing, especially if you have a relative who comes up BRCA1 or BRCA2 positive or any other type of disease they come up positive for. Um, it's so weird. And I wish that insurance covered it more just freely because you can go to your gynecologist and you can ask for this test. But I think if no one is tied to a specific positive result, then it's more expensive. But if there is a reason for you to get it, so my siblings got testing, so their test I think was like $200 or something.
Mm. Okay.
So it's silly because I wish I would have
Right.
known, at an early.
Right. Right. Right.
Yeah.
So Amanda, I know for me, having gone through the whole cancer experience, it changed me. How
Mhm.
did this breast cancer experience, how did it change you?
It changed me at a cellular level, at a spiritual level, at an emotional level. It really just puts life into perspective, and it really makes you appreciate and be so grateful for just the little things. I, going through cancer, I really was trying to be as positive as possible. And my life motto is, changing what is this, why is this happening to me, to what is this trying to teach me? So I really try to
Mm,
find lessons in everything. And I just have to remind myself life is so short. Tomorrow is never promised or guaranteed for anyone, regardless of cancer or not cancer. Anything can happen. And so we really just have to view life in that mindset to take the most advantage of the little
yeah,
moments.
yeah. And then you ended up writing a book and you started this organization called Cancer Baddies. Tell us about that. What's Cancer Baddies?
Oh, cancer baddies. And that was so funny. Cancer baddies stuck. I literally thought it was going to be just like a filler name, but I wanted to give the power back to the patient to just really be like, no, I am a warrior. I am a baddie. I can get through this. So I started this group as a way to really connect with my community online. I felt like it was a one-way street where I was sharing and I was talking and people were following me and commenting and sharing their stories. And I was like, I want this to be a conversation. Um, I was always hesitant to join support groups because I always felt like they're going to be all, older people. And I don't know if I'm going to be able to relate to them. So I was like, let me just start my own. And
Uh,
it's with women all around the world, all different types of cancers. And we just have a commonality that we share. And it's just cancer, how we've been affected by it. So
mm.
I do monthly virtual calls, Zoom calls. I do virtual events every month. And I just hosted a retreat last month
Mm,
for him as well.
mm.
Yeah.
That is awesome because when you go through the whole cancer experience, you can feel so lonely and vulnerable, even though you may have people around you, because folks don't really know what you're going through, and sometimes you don't even know how to voice your own, like what you're going through. It's hard to articulate it, and if you're an independent person, it's difficult to ask for support and help. I remember there were times I would be at home in pain and just feeling alone, like nobody cared, and I'd get into this rut, like nobody's checking on me. And well, I'm not, I, I think sometimes you have to tell people how to support you, you
Yeah.
know, because people sometimes want to support you. And then sometimes, getting a cancer diagnosis can scare people away. I don't know if you've experienced that, but that can, scare people away.
Yeah, everything you said, you hit the nail on the head. I think that was one of my biggest lessons being an independent, very strong woman was to learn how to ask for help and to learn how to receive. And I don't know if you struggled with that, but at the beginning it was
Hmm.
really hard for me to be like, I need help. Can you please come with me to this doctor's visit because I'm really scared. But it made me softer and I'm so grateful for
Mm.
that because still to this day I'm not afraid to be like, actually, I don't want to do this by myself. Can someone come help me? And people want to help because they
Yeah,
can't take the cancer away from you. So they're like, well, in what other ways can I show up for you? And
right.
yeah, sometimes it is exhausting telling people exactly what we need, but I think that's better than just being like, no, I'm okay. But yeah, in terms of relationships, that is one of the toughest parts, I would say, is like the people that you never thought would show up for you show up and you form these amazing relationships and these bonds with these people that you barely know. But some of the closest people in my life and jobs and even family members have just disappeared that I haven't even spoken to since my diagnosis. And it is really gut wrenching. I don't really talk about this that much on social media, but it is something that really saddens me and breaks my heart because I know that if someone was my best friend or someone was my sibling or someone was someone that I loved got the same diagnosis, I know I would be there every step of the way.
Yeah, yeah. I remember when I was going through, my experience. I had a person I didn't even know. It was a person on Facebook because I was sharing my journey on Facebook. who reached out to me. He would check on me every week, and he said, "Well, on payday, I'm gonna send you $50." And I didn't take the money, but I appreciated just the him. And like, and he's
That's
just
so sweet.
basically a stranger, and and the folks that were close to me, that wasn't happening. I don't know.
Yeah,
I guess maybe they just thought I was okay because
yeah,
how we show up. We show up and we look okay, and people think that we're okay. But I really was pleasantly surprised at the act of kindness from really a stranger. And I think sometimes when people, maybe he had gone through something similar, and he, and just know that, yeah, you need something, bro.
yeah.
You need somebody to check on you. You need, you might need a couple extra dollars because having cancer is very expensive.
Very
It's
expensive. Yeah. That
yeah,
is so kind of him. And like, it's little things like that, or people being like, can I send you food? Can I come
right.
with you?
Yeah,
And it's those little moments that mean the world to you. And
right.
then after
Yeah,
treatment, you start to notice those moments and you take them and you're just so grateful for all of those interactions.
yeah, yeah. And so, wait, you didn't mention your book. Don't you also have a book?
I wrote a book during treatment. I can't stop. I know. Yeah, I wrote a book while I was going through treatment because there's so many gaps in cancer. And doctors only have so much time with you when you are about to embark on something because there's a million questions that they could answer. And there's so many hypothetical situations that could come up. And when I started chemo, I was always like, what does this mean? What is this going to look like? What can I eat? What resources are available? What do I need to buy? And so a lot of times you just buy everything on Amazon. You try to do so much research or you do none at all, and you just don't feel fully prepared because you don't have someone's experience that they've gone through to tell you to be like, okay, these are the things that you need. And if you do, it's more word of mouth. So I was
Mhm.
like, going through chemo, and I was like, I need to write all of this down. I was filming videos, but I was like, I need to like put this together so that I can use this as a support for someone who's about to embark on a chemo journey. So I titled the book, Remember When I Had Cancer, Your Complete Guidebook to Navigating Chemotherapy. And I put it in the
Mhm.
past tense because I want people to speak it out loud. Remember when I had cancer, as in, I don't have it anymore.
Yeah.
And it's just a complete guidebook of like, okay, this was my journey. This is how I felt. This is how I prepared. This is how I deal with fatigue. These are the supplements, that a million supplements that I tried and that I use. And these are the ones that worked for me and my community. And I really took feedback from everyone in my Cancer Baddies group and things that worked for them, things that didn't work. And I compiled this interactive PDF and also an Amazon Kindle version of just an amazing way to prepare yourself as you go into chemo.
Wow, that's awesome. That
Yeah.
is really awesome.
Thank you.
So, what advice would you give to someone right now who is where you were 2 years ago, and they're afraid, they don't know what the you don't know what the outcome is going to be when you're going through treatment. There's a lot of fear and a lot of unknowns. What
Yeah.
advice would you give to someone who's in that space right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of things that I can say. I think the two like really big things that helped me. I remember at the beginning when I was feeling really scared and all of these emotions, you're angry, you're upset, you're all of these things, and I had to ground myself and remember, Amanda, you felt all of these emotions before in different scenarios throughout your life. You felt the heartache, you felt the letdown, you felt the uncertainty, and you've still got through. So that I use that as like training for the cancer experience. And I was like, I got through those experiences. I can also get through this. And I'm just going to take it one day at a time, one moment at a time, maybe 1 second at a time on the moments when I feel like I can't get through. And so
Mhm.
that really, really helped me. And I also remember the moment I was actually going in for my biopsy, and I was in this waiting room. It was like a separate back waiting room from the front. And I was with all of these Latina women. And I came in, I sat down, and in my mind, I was like, I don't have cancer. This is just like a routine thing. And a few of the women were crying. They were all speaking in Spanish. And so eventually they noticed that I was like trying to listen in. And So they started speaking in English. And one of the women, she turned to me and she was like, "Why are you here?" And I told her I had a biopsy. And so she was like, "I just beat breast cancer. I've been in treatment for the last year." She's like, "This woman just got diagnosed. These women are going through treatment. We all are having our checkups." She was like, "One thing that you need to remember is that you have to stay mentally strong and positive because your body knows. So if you go into whatever situation is going to happen and you think, I'm going to be sick, I'm not going to make it, or I can't do this, your body will reciprocate that, which I totally believe as well." And she was like, "Whatever happens from here on out, you will be okay. And keep reminding yourself that." And I just broke down in tears because this woman didn't even know me. She didn't know my situation. And to this day, I still remember that moment. And it really helped get me through treatment.
That is so important in terms of the mindset, because I remember when I was when I first got the diagnosis, people, when they hear cancer, they think death, but I never thought I was going to die.
Mm-hmm.
I just never thought that was going to happen. Other people around me probably did, but I just never, I just knew I was going to be okay.
Right.
So, and I think that's so important, because your mind affects how your mind is so powerful, and it affects your cells.
Yeah,
It's communicating with your cells.
absolutely.
So, Amanda, I know folks are going to want to connect with you and want to become a cancer baddie themselves.
Yeah.
How do they connect with you on social media?
Well, my handle is Hi Amanda Butler across TikTok and Instagram. So you can always connect with me there. TikTok is my main platform where I share a lot of cancer tips and tricks and kind of post cancer life now. I'm sharing dating and I'm sharing just like, how am I?
Oh, come on now, you're dating and stuff. All right.
I'm trying, but it's not that successful. But yeah, and then I have links there if you want to become a cancer baddie and join my events and my retreats and my support group. There is a link in my bio and you can fill out the form there.
All right. Wow. Well, thank you so much, Miss Cancer Baddie herself, Amanda Butler. I appreciate you. Thank you so much for your courage. Thank you so much for being vulnerable and telling your story in a real way that is impacting and reaching. I think you reached 100,000 folks with your story and more. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for having the platform that you have, because you're changing so many people's lives in a positive way. And I think that this is so needed in today's space. So thank you for allowing me to share my story.
Awesome. So check her out, y'all. Amanda Butler, Miss Cancer Baddie herself.
Bye, guys. Thank you.